Okay, the bronze medal. Number 3, The Neverending Story, the fantasy film based on the book of the same name, revolving around a little boy that becomes part of a magical story or book or fairy tale, whatever. Most people that grew up in the 80s know this one, so I'm not going to get too much into the plot. But on the other hand, if you haven't heard of it, I'd seriously recommend it. When I think of fantasy films, this is one of the first movies that pops into my head. As a kid, I adored this movie. Fantasy films in general have a tendency to captivate kids because they contain the very things that kids want to believe in. And The Neverending Story has it all. Strange creatures, dragons, beasts, warriors, magic, and on top of all that, it has a solid plot and good acting. Before Harry Potter and all that CGI bullshit, film crews had to rely on organic special effects and sets that were intended to be shot with a camera. Everything was handcrafted, and that's one of the reasons why I enjoy films like this so much. I know that almost everything I see was in front of the camera at some point and not created by someone sitting in front of a computer. For example, Falkor is actually a 50-foot animatronic puppet, and in some scenes, a 40-centimeter miniature is used. Mork is just an animatronic head, but damn he looks scary. His head is capable of 59 movements for the dialogue scenes and required 17 technicians. Morla is actually 3 different models, the smallest being only 50 centimeters high, and the largest 32 feet tall, along with a giant animatronic head. And the Rockbiter also uses 3 different 5-foot models, including a heavy 40-pound suit worn by an actor. Who the hell needs CGI? It just seems like such an easy, lazy way out. And besides, I think half the fun of these films is asking the question, how the hell did they do that? Oh yes, and on a side note, there are rumors of a remake for this film too. Let's just hope they remain rumors.
No, it's a great idea.
Shut the fuck up.
And now, the final crowning touch to this cake. Take about a spoon of cocoa.
I'm gonna throw it to you, okay?
Put it in a spread small sieve. You shake your sieve.
Making number 2 is one all of you should recognize. The Goonies. This is the epitome of what makes a good kids movie. I don't know of one person who's seen this and didn't like it. And how could you not? You've got a bunch of outcast kids on a treasure hunt trying to save their neighborhood from being turned into a golf course. Bingo. That right there is gold. But then you throw in some great villains, a bunch of booby traps.
That's what I said, booby traps!
One goofy-ass monster dude, and you've got yourself one awesome movie. It's not hard for me to understand why I enjoyed this so much growing up. But when I think about it now, it makes even more sense. Steven Spielberg completely reverses the roles of the adults and kids. All the adults are helpless dumbasses, and it's the kids who are the heroes. Very similar to that of a slasher film. It's really the perfect formula. Aside from the writing, The Goonies contains a cast of outstanding actors. Everyone in this film does an awesome job of selling the story, and the chemistry between the kids is fantastic. The only part I find to be a bit cheesy in the acting department is at the end where the dad rips up the real estate contract.
There'll be no more signing today or ever again!
Just a little overacting, but that's just me looking for something to nitpick about. And believe me, it's really hard to do with a film like this. It's definitely a top favorite of mine, and I'd go as far as calling this one a classic. Oh, and guess what? There's talk of a sequel in the works. Unbelievable, right?
Rocky Road?
It feels like half the movies I'm talking about are getting remakes or sequels. I'm really not sure what to think of a sequel to a film that was released nearly 25 years ago. It doesn't even seem possible, but who knows, it's Hollywood. Personally, I think they should just leave it alone, especially with such a cult classic like this. People, including myself, are so fond of this film, and their expectations for a sequel would be through the roof. It just seems like such a losing battle, but I'd probably see it either way because I'm a sucker like that. No wonder the trend seems to be targeting folks like me.
And then I made a noise like this.
Now I'm sure you're wondering what could possibly beat The Goonies, right? Well, here it is, my number 1 kids movie of the 1980s. The Explorers, the film about 3 boys that build a spaceship and go into outer space to meet aliens. Okay, I know a lot of people probably won't agree with me here, and I respect that. But in my book, this movie gets the gold medal. As a kid, I never rented or watched a movie more times than this one. Something about it just really struck a chord with me. I remember watching this and believing anything was possible, that the dreams I had meant something and I could fly into outer space. It just really sparked imagination on a whole different level, especially with the open ending. Aside from the wonderful story, the movie is loaded with humor, and I have to credit that to Joe Dante, who directed this. I still find myself laughing out loud during the scenes at Wolfgang's house and the drive-in.
Now is the time for destruction.
And the aliens are just flat out hilarious. I'm still blown away that Robert Picardo played Whack, the alien's father, and Starkiller. Speaking of the aliens, this brings up an interesting topic. I've read a lot of reviews and opinions where people feel that the scenes in space with aliens don't really fit with the movie and are too strange or goofy. I guess I understand where they're coming from, but I mostly have to disagree. I think the aliens add a good element to the story and complement the theme of the movie. Flying into outer space is something you'd expect, and meeting some aliens really adds a good touch in my opinion. After all, the title is Explorers. Now let's talk about the aliens. Yeah, they're pretty damn goofy and strange, which is exactly what I like about them.
I'm Ben. Me Ben.
Me, Tarzan.
They're so off the wall and not at all what you'd expect. I mean, this isn't Steven Spielberg directing. It's Joe Dante, and if you've ever seen a Joe Dante film, you know that he's anything but serious when it comes to science fiction. Just take a look at Gremlins. On a different note, the acting is spot on. The young Ethan Hawke, River Phoenix, and Jason Preston are outstanding together. I also like Dick Miller's performance. I think his character really complements the character that Ethan Hawke plays. There's really not a whole lot more I need to say about Explorers. It's a fantastic movie, and if you haven't seen it, hunt down a copy and pop it in on a gloomy afternoon. Well, there you have it. I'd like to apologize for the length of this video. It ended up being much longer than I thought it would. There's just so much to talk about with these movies, but don't worry, I promise the next one will be much shorter, so stay tuned for the next part where I'll be going over the top 10 family movies of the 80s. Thanks for watching.
Now remember, you can see him in Tahoe the week of the 17th and in Atlantic City on Easter weekend, isn't that right? Let's all try to be there.